Hi, this is TapCat, and today I'd like to talk about the switch to digital media and the pros and cons of that, at least as I see it. What made me think of this? When I put together my new PC, I don't know, a month or so ago, I talked then about the process of trying to declutter my desk area and organize it. And since then, I have expanded that process to include my office as a whole here at home, I mean. And I have a lot of stuff. I'm a lifelong reader, so I've accumulated quite a lot of books over time. And I also have collected comic books for many years, and I have quite a sizable collection of those. So as you can tell, I am far from digital only. And then in the last year or so, I also got into board games, and they are very space consuming. One game takes up a good chunk of shelf space, and it doesn't take many to eat up an entire shelf. So I've kind of had this pressure building in here for a while where I'm kind of reaching the bursting point. And this past week, I've spent a lot of time going through and kind of attacking it on multiple fronts. So part of it is periodically I'll go through my comics and I just cull anything that I don't really think I want to read again. I don't need to have it on my shelf if it's not something that I legitimately see myself reading anytime in the foreseeable future. And I do the same thing with books. Now, I have already culled, both of them many times in the past, but my purge on books was different this time because there were books that I have every intention of reading again that I got rid of. And the reason for that was just very simply that when I want to read them again, I will buy them in electronic form. Now, what I love about that is the space savings. I mean, every single book you get rid of now, that's just shelf space I don't need anymore. And I need every inch, so that's really nice. The other thing I like about it is that I would say I don't read as often as I used to. And, in part that's because I spend time playing video games and recording videos and whatnot. But the reasons why aside, I just don't read as often. And when I do, it is often when I'm traveling. And so what I used to do is bring quite a few books because when I read, I'm a relatively fast reader and I'll just immerse myself in a book, and consume it in a day or so. So if you take, a week vacation, you can go through a number of books, especially when you spend a lot of time sitting at the airport. So anyway, I love that I can just bring my tablet and I can have a lot of books in there, way more than I can read in a week or a month or a year, I think. So, that it's really great having that convenience. And one thing I will say for books is I think of all of the things that have gone digital, they're probably the ones that suffer least in terms of any quality of the experience. Now, you may like turning pages, you may like the smell of the paper, but in terms of reading a story, I don't think there's any measurable or real difference, for me at least, when I read that, on my tablet as opposed to holding a paperback or hardback book in my hands. So I love that. Now, what do I not love about it? Well, one thing I do really like about physical books is, like some of the ones, man, I've owned them forever. Like I bought some of these when I was still in grade school, and I've read them many times and I still own them. And when I look at the shelf and I see it there, it makes me happy. I'm glad. It's like an old friend in the room with me. And I like that. I also, what I started doing over time when space became more of a concern, instead of buying all my books physically, what I would do is, particularly if it was part of a series, I would buy the first book, physically, and then after that I would just buy on Kindle. But that way I still had one on the shelf that I could enjoy seeing. And I think I'm done with that now. I think that from now on, if I buy a book, it'll be for my Kindle. Like, that's just pretty much it. Because of space. It really is just all about that. And also the fact that, it's a lot more mobile that way without taking up any room in luggage or anything. So for books, I will mourn the passing of seeing them on my shelf. I am keeping some, by the way. I didn't get rid of all of my books. The ones that I'm most attached to, I will keep indefinitely. Now, music, I mostly shifted to digital a long time ago. And I still own all the CDs that I owned back in the day when that was just how you bought music. But I keep them only as a backup. If something were to happen to all the MP3s, that I have on my hard drive and my iPod, then I would rip it all from CD again. But other than that, they sit in a closet and, they don't get touched. And I know that the sound quality is not as good, but honestly, I don't really hear that myself. I believe it's not as good because people who really study these things tell me that. But when I listen to them, I don't really have a problem with it. Now, the one that I think is more interesting, although it has nothing to do with my little office organization project, is movies. Because there's a pretty obvious switch from physical, like DVDs and that, to streaming nowadays. That's how most people watch movies. And it's interesting to me, I guess in part because streaming in some ways just seems so amazingly inefficient for files as large as movies. I see with the videos I upload to YouTube that the quality on the video that I create is just way better than what you will ever see on YouTube, because they compress the living hell out of these things so that they can stream it to you. And a lot of people trash YouTube for that. I really don't. I think as someone who stores just my own, videos on a hard drive, it takes up an enormous amount of space. And, I have hundreds of videos. How many do they have? Millions, probably, I would imagine. And the practicalities of streaming that live all of the time, we just don't have unlimited bandwidth. And the thing that's really interesting to me, like, people spend a lot of money to buy high definition TVs, and then they watch a movie on Netflix. And I got to tell you, like, if you take a movie, and it doesn't even need to be an action movie, it could just be a romantic comedy or whatever. If you watched the Blu-ray and then you watched Netflix, it would pretty much make your jaw drop at how crappy the Netflix version is. It's pretty much like watching a good quality DVD. And the Blu-ray really, really just crushes that. So I find it really interesting, especially with TV manufacturers trying to push us all into 4K, something I'm kind of skeptical that people really care about. But I'm wondering how many people who think they want 4K will then watch everything streaming, get no benefit whatsoever out of it. I don't know. That's just something that I worry or wonder about. I don't know how many people really care about picture quality or notice picture quality when it's better or worse. I think it's easier if someone showed you, like if they took the time to do A to B comparison, then I think most people could see it. But like my wife, for example, she will sometimes turn the TV to the non-high definition channels, and she does not notice at all. She can sit there and watch whatever show it is and be perfectly happy. And if I so much as walk by the room, I mean, I just immediately am like, oh my God, why are you doing that? Because to me, it just looks terrible. And I wonder, though, how typical that is versus the ability where you're just watching it. You're not thinking about the picture quality, and it's not really a big thing to you. Well, at any rate, I guess I will say, beyond just the mere fact of going, quote, digital, I think video streaming is the one that I have the most trouble with, and it's the one I do the least of. I'll stream TV shows, but I virtually never stream movies because the quality matters to me. Now, I will say that was a lot more practical in the era of Blockbuster Video because now it's a lot more expensive. I can't just rent a movie for a few bucks. I got to buy it if I want. And I guess that's where we get back to space because, yes, I do also have a decent-sized collection of DVDs and Blu-rays, and I don't intend to get rid of those anytime soon. I would love if Netflix or Hulu or somebody had true HD streaming. And I'm not aware of anybody. By the way, if you are, I'd love to hear about somebody who could stream that is not compressed within an inch of its life and it actually looks good. Because that I might pay for. I would be interested in that. I think the truth is that you basically can't stream if you're doing that. You would have to download it, and it would be a big download. And that's why they don't do it. It's not because Netflix is against people seeing good video quality. It's because they have a business to run, and they need to be able to let people push play, and a few seconds later, the video starts. All right, well, I'm not sure if I really have a point other than that I like pretty pictures, and I'm not always sure that other people like pretty pictures. But I will say that along with all the other things that I like does make for a very crowded house, and I'm sure I will have an ongoing battle against my clutter, but it's a battle I'm willing to fight. And I'd love to hear about anything like that on your end. If how do you feel about the video thing in particular? I'm curious because probably video and comics, those are two things I just can't see switching. They do scan the comics in now. You can buy those for your tablet, and I don't want to. I just don't want to read them that way. I like having it in my hands and having a physical collection. And so anyway, is there anything like that where you don't want to let go of the old media world? I think that as the years go by, we won't have any choice. You can keep what you already own, but my sense is, like magazines will probably cease to exist as a physical medium, newspapers, comic books, all of that. And I don't know if it'll reach a point where DVDs and Blu-rays don't exist anymore, but it might. It might. God. Like, does anybody buy a CD anymore? Like, literally anybody. I'm not even being sarcastic. I assume that they still make them, but I don't even know that for a fact. It's been so many years since I've seen one in a store or anything. So, all right. Well, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I will let it go at that. I just thought I would share some random thoughts on a fairly old topic because I think this has been plaguing people for a number of years now. At any rate, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you next time.